Welcome to your monthly market update from the MatSu Valley. My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm an associate real estate broker in the state of Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And today we're going to be talking about the market update for what's going on in the MatSu Valley. And really what we're going to be looking at there is what's going on in the single family, land, and multifamily, just to give you an idea for what's happening in a bunch of different aspects of the real estate market here in the MatSu Valley. Before we get started though, give this video a like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And without further ado, let's jump into today's market update, looking first at the residential market. Now, the first thing we see is that for the single family properties, we see this time last year, there was about 440 properties available. Now we're looking at probably about 590. And so that is a pretty significant jump in the inventory that's available. I'm a little skeptical of that number though, because I don't know, just looking at this right off the bat, how many of these properties are actually physically ready to go. And what I mean by that is new construction is so big in the MatSu Valley. It makes up a pretty significant portion of it, and that's where most of the new construction happens in the entire state. One of the practices of the builders is that they will actually put a listing out there, and the ground has not even been broken yet. They have a lot of pictures up there as though that it has, and it does enter onto the MLS as, a listing. So whether or not it's actually available though for most people, because most people probably don't have the flexibility to wait 9 months to a year for a home to be complete. They need something within the couple of months. So yes, inventory is going up, and I couldn't say just by looking at this how much of that is actually new construction and how much of it is just brick and mortar, ready to go physically move in right now. I couldn't say just by looking at this. What I can tell you is pre-COVID, though, we would normally see anywhere from about 770 to about 850 properties available on the market. So you can see, even if a lot of those homes are, even though we are seeing an increase there, given hopefully that a lot of those are actually brick and mortar physical homes, we're still a ways off from where we were pre-COVID, and we're probably not going back to that anytime soon. All right, next thing we're seeing is that the number of properties that sold this time last year was about 170, and now it's 152. So that is a bit of a drop, and normally even pre-COVID, we'd see somewhere around 180, 190, maybe 160. So lower than what we would normally expect. With it being an election year, though, that's not too big of a surprise. You would see a bit of a drop there. People do kind of have this reaction where they kind of want to just hunker down and not actually do anything and just wait and see how things are going. So if that was the thing that impacted it, that wouldn't surprise me that much. Now, looking at the average sold price year to date, we see in the MatSu Valley that it went from about $398,000 to about $416,000, meaning that we're sitting at about a 4.5% increase for the appreciation for single-family properties here in the MatSu Valley, which I'm actually pretty happy with that. I didn't really enjoy that time back in around the COVID era when we were seeing double-digit increase for the average sold price year to date. It was too quick, and honestly, it's just not healthy for a market to stay at that place for too long. So I'm glad to see that it kind of calmed down a little bit. The rate at which things are increasing has cooled off. They have not gone backwards, and that's the thing that a lot of people were chomping at the bit about and trying to predict, so then they could say, oh, look, I predicted a crash. There's no crash. Okay, the inventory is way too small for there to be a crash. Crashes happen when there's too much inventory, nobody wants it, and then everything goes toppling down. You can have the most sophisticated methodologies in the entire world that's going to predict this. Like, you found that one variable that's going to predict everything, and simple supply and demand trumps it every dadgum time. I don't care who you're talking to, what website you're on, or what statistic you think you found. Supply and demand trumps it all. Sorry, I'm kind of got on my soapbox there. It's been a long day. So, yes, we are seeing the average sold price still continuing to go up, probably not going to be going down anytime soon. Let's go and switch gears real quick and take a look at what's going on as far as the raw land here in the MatSu Valley, because this is where a lot of raw land does get bought and sold because it's a developing area. This time last year, there were 685 pieces of raw land for net sale. Now we're looking at about 627. So that's a bit of a decrease from what we saw this time last year. Usually around this time of year, we'd see anywhere probably about 1,100 to 1,200 pieces of raw land for sale. So there's a lot of people out there probably with raw land. They're just hanging on to it just to kind of see how everything goes. And Yeah, that doesn't surprise me too much. Now, the next thing we see is the number of pieces of raw land themselves is sold went from 60 this time last year to 45 this year. So we're seeing a bit of a drop there. And maybe with it being an election year, that has an impact just on the number of pieces of raw land that people want to start developing. I think a lot of people, because raw land is tied so closely to development, a lot of developers and builders might be hanging tight just until they can kind of wait and see how the new administration is going to encourage or discourage building and new construction in the near future. So maybe that's what's going on. I couldn't say for sure. That's just one theory I have. Feel free to drop your theory in the comment section down below. Now, the next thing we see is that the average sold price dropped by about $2,000. It went from $82,000 this time last year to approximately $80,000 this year. So it's about a 2% decrease in the average sold price. Not a big swing one way or the other. And I'd be really curious to kind of look and see what the average size of those properties that have actually been selling, because sometimes maybe just bigger lots were being sold in the previous year, and that's why their sold price was higher. Maybe this year, like instead of selling 2.5, 3 acres, maybe now we're only selling like quarter acres or half acres in the MatSu. I couldn't say just by looking at this, but just looking at the 30,000 foot view, average sold price did decrease a little bit, and that's pretty much the only asset class in any category we've seen any kind of a decrease for this entire market update, looking at all of South Central Alaska. All right, let's go and take a break real quick here. If you like the drone footage that you see on this channel, do make sure you go check out my Instagram page where I go and use the content, use the footage that I get from flying the drones across the entire South Central Alaska and the Kenai as well, and actually Kodiak, Alaska as well. So if you just like Alaska in general, feel free to go check out my Instagram page where I make a lot of reels kind of featuring a lot of the scenery and everything that's available here in Alaska, and look forward to interacting with you there. And let's go and finish up today's market update looking at the multifamily market. Now, the first thing we want to look at for multifamily is the number of multifamily properties that are available on the market. So this time last year, we saw 39 available on the market, and this year it's 41. So we're seeing a very slight increase for the number of multifamily properties that are available. The next thing we see is that the number of multifamily properties that have actually sold went from 9 this time last year to 10 this year. So we're still seeing, compared to the previous year, a pretty good demand for multifamily properties, even with interest rates being a little bit higher. I think a lot of these investors that are going out and purchasing during this time, everyone's getting all hung up over, interest rates, there can't be any good deals out there. There are good deals out there. You just have to be able to adjust your strategy a little bit and make sure you're having a kind of a longer term, sophisticated look on how you approach it. I'm not saying just jump into anything and lose your shirt over it. I am saying there's nuance to it, and sometimes there's something really to be said to purchase something that doesn't cash flow as much as you would like to right now, because it's going to have other benefits later. Like maybe it's going to appreciate at a quicker rate than what you're going to find with most other properties, or that, hey, I can get in here and then I can in fact just refinance as soon as the interest rates come down, and that's really going to impact my bottom line. Meanwhile, I'm enjoying this appreciation. So that being said, that's why we do see an increase for the number of multifamily properties that are selling. Last but not least, we see the average sold price did increase by approximately 3.3%, went from about $580,000 to about $599,000. So that's what is that? About 20,000? Yeah, that's about 20,000. Sorry, I'm so tired. That's about a $20,000 increase for the average sold price. Keep in mind that does include everything from little rinky-dink duplex all the way up to like a big commercial property. I'd say the average sold price in the MatSu Valley is probably more reflective of the reality than what you're going to see over in Anchorage, because there are fewer big commercial properties in the MatSu than there are over in Anchorage. So for that reason, I think this is actually pretty accurate for what we're seeing for the average sold price for properties in the MatSu Valley as far as the multifamily market goes. All right, now let's go ahead and give you a summary real quick here. Really what this means for me if I was approaching it as a buyer is if I needed to buy it all, I'd be jumping in as quickly as we can. And I know that's kind of counterintuitive. Right now we're in election season and everyone's talking about just hunkering down. Let's wait and see what happens. And I would have the exact opposite approach if I needed to purchase a home at all. And the reason for that is there's really no penalty at this point for just jumping in. And the reason I say that is because if I get in and I buy something, then interest rates come down, I'll just refinance and get the benefit of the lower interest rate without having to compete with the market suddenly getting flooded with competition in the way of other buyers trying to jump in. If something happens and now interest rates and suddenly inflation shooting through the roof, then the biggest line item in my entire budget, which is going to be my housing, is actually pretty secure and stable. I understand a lot of people might want to just wait and see what happens, and unfortunately, I understand the sentiment, and I don't think it's the best option if that is the sole reason that we're doing it, is we want to see how everything shakes out with the election. Elections come and elections go, and it's just really doesn't impact us too much down here at this level unless you find yourself suddenly caught up in another competitive market, which it is not right now. Well, not nearly as much as it was a couple years ago. If interest rates suddenly drop, then that could very easily change very quickly. If I'm a seller looking at this data, really the takeaway for me is that it's still a competitive market for sellers. Like, it's still a seller's market. It's not what it was back in 2021, 22, and a little bit of 23. This is more or less grinding its way back into being a balanced market. Still more of a seller's market, but the big thing that I would be taking away is just because your neighbor got 10, 20 offers on the very first day, and there was all these sweet, cushy, sweetheart deals being made, that may or may not be your experience. You're still probably going to make more than what they did just because the market's appreciating. But just because they got that, I would not expect that to be your experience. And you should go into it kind of expecting maybe to be paying some buyer closing expenses and some other concessions along the way as well, just to make sure that it moves quickly. So that would kind of be my expectations moving forward. But this has been your market update for the MatSu Valley. If you have any questions or would like to reach out to me and for me to help you with either buying, selling, or helping you to invest in the MatSu Valley, feel free to reach out to me on my website down below. I'd be more than happy to do that. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.